How medieval peasants endured the harshest winter. In the late Middle Ages, from the 5th to the 15th century, the lives of peasants were defined by their struggle against the elements, especially during the brutal winters. Survival was a constant challenge, and in this first part of our historical journey, we'll explore the ingenious ways these resilient individuals braved the coldest season of the year. The first line of defense against the cold was their homes. Peasant homes during the Middle Ages were simple structures, often consisting of just one room where eating, sleeping, and daily activities took place. These walls were typically made of wale and daub, a combination of wooden strips interwoven with a mixture of mud, straw, and animal dung. While this provided some insulation, it was far from perfect. To combat the cold, families would gather around a central hearth which burned continuously throughout the day, fueled by wood or peat. The smoke from the fire would escape through a hole in the roof, providing a vital source of heat and a place to cook food. Clothing was another crucial aspect of survival in the cold winter months. Medieval peasants wore layers of clothing made from wool, hemp, or flax. The tunic, a simple loose-fitting garment, was the most common garment, covering the body from the shoulders to somewhere between the hips and the ankles. This tunic was worn over a shirt or undergarments, and in winter, multiple layers were worn for added warmth. Cloaks, hoods, and gloves were also common, offering additional protection against the cold. One of the biggest challenges faced by medieval peasants during winter was the scarcity of food. As farmers, their diet was largely dependent on the crops they grew. The main staples were grains such as barley, oats, and rye, which were used to make bread, porridge, and ale. During the summer and autumn, when the harvest was abundant, peasants preserved as much food as possible for the harsh winter months. They employed drying, smoking, and pickling techniques to extend the shelf life of their food. Livestock, particularly cows, pigs, and chickens, played a vital role in their diet, providing milk, meat, and eggs. However, sustaining these animals through the winter posed a significant challenge. Peasants had to balance the need to feed their families with the responsibility of keeping their livestock alive. Often this meant sacrificing some animals in the autumn and preserving their meat for the winter. Despite these difficulties, medieval peasants demonstrated remarkable resilience and resourcefulness in making the most of the winter months. They gathered in their homes around the fire, sharing stories and singing songs to pass the time. They also engaged in winter sports like ice skating and snowball fights, which offered a welcome respite from the hardships of daily life. In conclusion, survival during the coldest winter for medieval peasants was a testament to their preparation, resourcefulness, and unwavering community spirit. Their homes, clothing, and food were meticulously designed to provide warmth and sustenance. Even amidst the harsh conditions, they managed to maintain their spirits and persevere through the cold. This resilience stands as a beacon of hope, a reminder of the strength and adaptability of these individuals who faced the challenges of their time with courage and determination. As we delve deeper into the lives of these medieval peasants, we will witness this resilience repeatedly, a guiding light in the darkest of winters. The winter of 1315, however, was no ordinary winter in medieval Europe. It heralded the onset of the Great Famine, a period that would endure until the summer of 1317 and stand as one of the coldest and most unforgiving times in recorded history. The winter was so severe that it was called the Year of the Great Cold or the Year of Ice. But how did the medieval peasants, the common people of that time, survive this harsh winter? What were their strategies, methods, and secrets? First, it's important to understand that medieval peasants were largely self-reliant. They didn't have the luxuries of central heating or grocery stores. They had to depend on their own skills and resources to survive. They had to store food, make and repair clothing, build and maintain their homes, and work the land while raising livestock. Food was one of the most crucial resources for surviving the winter. During the autumn harvest, peasants worked diligently to gather as much food as possible. They collected grains like wheat and barley, as well as vegetables like cabbages, onions, and turnips. They also gathered nuts, berries, and fruits from the forest. If they were fortunate, they might have had some livestock like chickens or pigs to provide them with meat and eggs. All of this food was carefully stored to ensure it lasted through the winter. Grains were particularly important because they were the staple of the peasant diet and could be stored for long periods. They were ground into flour and used to make bread, which was the most common food in the medieval diet. Bread was eaten at every meal, often with a little cheese or some vegetables. Clothing was another crucial resource for surviving the winter. Medieval peasants didn't have the luxury of modern materials like synthetic fibers or down feathers. Instead, they relied on what was available to them: wool, linen, and animal skins. Wool was the most common material for winter clothing because it was warm, durable, and relatively easy to work with. Peasants would shear their sheep in the spring and spend the summer and autumn spinning the wool into yarn and weaving it into cloth. Their clothing, though simple, was effective. They wore tunics and leggings, often layered for extra warmth, and cloaks, hoods, and mittens. To protect their feet from the cold, they wrapped them in strips of cloth. These clothes served not only as warmth but also as protection against the wind and snow, which could be just as deadly as the cold itself. Shelter was equally crucial for surviving the winter. Medieval peasant homes were simple, usually consisting of a single room with a thatched roof and walls made of whale and daub, a mixture of mud, straw, and dung. While not particularly well insulated, these homes provided some protection from the elements, keeping the peasants warm. A fire burning in the hearth, usually located in the home's center, served multiple purposes. It provided heat, light, and a place to cook food. Firewood was gathered throughout the year and carefully stored for winter. Peasants also burned peat, a type of soil that could be dried and used as fuel if they had access to it. Surviving the winter wasn't just about having the right resources, it was also about knowing how to use them effectively. Peasants had to be strategic in their use of food, clothing, and fuel, rationing their supplies to ensure they lasted throughout the winter. They also had to be vigilant about maintaining their homes and clothing, repairing any damage quickly to prevent heat loss. Despite the harsh conditions and scarcity of resources, medieval peasants were remarkably resilient. They knew how to survive, adapt, and make do with what they had. They knew how to face the winter and emerge stronger. Their strength, resourcefulness, and determination, a testament to their endurance. As we journey through history, let us pause to admire the resilience of medieval peasants. Imagine a world without central heating, weather forecasts, or supermarkets. Survival depended on their own labor, and the weather could determine a bountiful harvest or a barren field. This was the reality for peasants during the coldest winters of the Middle Ages. As the harvest season ended, villagers spent the long autumn days gathering and storing food for the harsh winter. Hay was stacked high in barns to feed livestock, and root vegetables like turnips and carrots were carefully stored in cool, dry cellars. Summer fruits like apples, pears, and berries were transformed into preserves and pies, providing a sweet respite during the long, cold winter. However, preparing and storing food was only the first step. Fuel for heating and cooking was equally crucial. Throughout the year, peasants collected wood from forests, fallen branches, and twigs. This wood was carefully stored and rationed for the winter. Fire was a precious resource, offering warmth and light during the long, dark days and nights. It was also essential for cooking hearty stews and broths that sustained the villages. Medieval peasant homes were simple structures, usually made of whale and daub. Whale and daub was a composite building material made from woven wooden strips called whale, covered with a sticky material known as daub, usually a mixture of clay, sand, and straw. These homes were not well insulated, relying solely on the central hearth for heat. To stay warm, families huddled together, sharing body heat, and thick furs and cloths were used to cover doors and windows to keep out the cold. Clothing played a crucial role in surviving the harsh winter. Wool, the most common material, was valued for its warmth and relatively easy production. Peasants raised sheep to obtain wool, which was then spun into yarn and woven into cloth. Women in the village dedicated long winter evenings to spinning and weaving, creating warm clothing for their families. Winter, however, was not solely a time of hardship and survival. It also fostered communal bonding and celebration. The long, dark nights were filled with storytelling, singing, and dancing, providing both entertainment and strengthening community ties. Celebrations like Christmas and the New Year brought a sense of joy and festivity to the bleak winter landscape. Despite the challenging conditions, medieval peasants not only survived, but thrived. Their resilience, resourcefulness, and communal spirit enabled them to face the winter with strength and determination. As we now enjoy warmth and comfort, let us take a moment to appreciate the struggles and triumphs of these hardy ancestors. Their stories serve as a testament to the power of the human spirit and the ability to find joy and beauty even in the most difficult circumstances. As we continue our historical journey, let us carry forward the lessons of the medieval peasant. Their adaptability and survival in the face of adversity inspire us all. As we listen to the howling wind outside, let us express gratitude for the comforts and conveniences of our modern world. As we drift off to sleep, let us dream of warm hearths, hearty stews, simple homes filled with laughter and song, and a community united in the face of adversity. As we journey into the past, let us also deepen our appreciation for the present and gain a greater understanding of our place in the grand tapestry of history. As the sun descended below the horizon, the winter night enveloped the medieval village in its icy embrace. The peasants retreated into their modest abodes, built primarily of timber, wattle and daub, offering a meager shield against the biting cold. The daub, a blend of clay, dung and straw, possessed remarkable insulating properties, effectively warding off the chill. The floors, typically composed of packed earth, appeared harsh and unforgiving. Yet a layer of straw or reeds was often scattered across them, providing a semblance of warmth. Within these homes, the peasants' furniture was sparse and utilitarian. A rough wooden table and a few stools constituted the entirety of their furnishings. However, the hearth stood as the heart of the home, a life-giving source of warmth, light and sustenance. It served as a place for cooking, a gathering spot, and a venue for storytelling and singing. The crackling fire became a beacon of hope during the long, dreary winter months. Winter brought with it a bounty of fresh food, but the medieval peasants were well versed in the art of preservation. They salted, pickled, and dried their produce and meats, ensuring a steady supply of sustenance throughout the cold season. Additionally, grains harvested in the autumn were ground into flour and transformed into hearty breads. Root vegetables like turnips, parsnips, and carrots were stored in cool, dark places to prevent spoilage. The peasants relied heavily on their livestock, not only for meat, but also for milk, cheese, and wool. They were resourceful in their clothing, spinning wool into yarn and weaving it into coarse yet warm cloth. Layering was crucial for survival, as they donned multiple layers of woolen garments, often lining them with fur or leather for enhanced insulation. Footwear was equally essential in maintaining body heat, as they crafted shoes and boots from leather, stuffing them with straw or fur for added warmth. The winter, despite its harshness, was not merely a season of survival, but also a time for celebration. The medieval peasant reveled in the Christmas season, a time of great festivity marked by feasting, dancing, and merriment. The Yule log, a massive piece of wood, was burned in the hearth, symbolizing hope and rejuvenation. The peasants believed that as long as the Yule log burned, they would be shielded from the evils of winter. Winter also provided a much-needed respite for the peasant. The fields lay dormant under a blanket of snow, leaving little work to be done. This allowed them to take a well-deserved break from the grueling labor of the other seasons. They used this time to mend their tools, weave and sew, and craft and create. The village would come together during this period, sharing stories, food, and warmth. It was a time of community, camaraderie, shared hardship, and shared joy. The cold winter nights were long, and the days were short. However, within the confines of their humble homes, around the warmth of the hearth, the peasants found comfort and solace. In the face of the harshest winter, the medieval peasant stood as a testament to resilience and resourcefulness. They understood the rhythm of the seasons, the ebb and flow of life. They acknowledged that winter was a time of hardship, but they also recognized it as a time of rest, celebration, and community. They understood that winter was not merely a season to endure, but a season to embrace. As we delve deeper into the life of the medieval peasant, we can observe that while their existence was indeed harsh and fraught with difficulties, it was also a life of simplicity, community, and resilience in the face of winter's challenges. They persevered, adapted, and endured, and in doing so, they left us with a legacy of strength and fortitude that continues to inspire us today. Our journey into the lives of the medieval peasants during the coldest winters continues. In this segment, we'll explore the humble homes of the peasants, the modest abodes that offered them shelter, warmth, and a semblance of comfort amidst the harsh conditions of their lives. These one-room structures, often made of whale and daub, provided a haven from the biting cold of winter. Whale and daub were composite building materials used for constructing walls, consisting of a woven lattice of wooden strips. The whale was covered with a sticky material, typically a combination of wet soil, clay, sand, animal dung, and straw. Peasant houses were typically small, averaging around 10 feet, but they were sturdy, warm, and waterproof due to the ingenious use of readily available materials. The roofs were thatched with straw or reeds, providing insulation against the cold. Inside, a central hearth served as the primary source of heat for cooking and warmth. Smoke from the fire rose and escaped through a hole in the roof, allowing some natural light to filter in. The houses were sparsely furnished with a rough wooden table, wooden stools, and a straw mattress, providing the basic comforts. The floors were often bare, hard-packed earth, sometimes strewn with straw for additional insulation and warmth. Despite these modest trappings, the peasant's house was a sanctuary, a place of refuge against the brutal winters that could last for months. During these cold months, food was scarce but not entirely absent. The peasants would have harvested their crops in the fall and stored them for winter. Grains such as barley, oats, and rye were their primary sources of sustenance, ground into flour and baked into bread. They also grew vegetables that could withstand the winter cold, including cabbages, turnips, and onions. Beans and peas provided a vital source of protein, while apples and pears could be stored for extended periods. Additionally, the peasants kept livestock, which provided them with milk, cheese, and occasionally meat. Chickens provided eggs, while pigs, often slaughtered in early winter, offered meat that could be salted and smoked for preservation. Hunting and foraging supplemented their diet with wild game, fish, berries, and nuts, adding variety and essential nutrients. During the cold winter months, men engaged in woodcutting, not only for firewood, but also to provide timber for building and repairing houses, fences, and farm tools. Women, in addition to their relentless work in the house, also engaged in spinning and weaving, producing wool and flax for clothing and bedding. Despite the harsh conditions, the peasants found ways to cheer themselves during the long winter nights. Storytelling, a popular pastime, involved tales of heroism, romance, and magic. These stories, passed down from generation to generation, provided entertainment, moral guidance, and a sense of identity. The resilience of the medieval peasants during the coldest winters speaks volumes about their unwavering spirit and resourcefulness. The warmth of their hearth, the sustenance of their stored harvest and livestock, the shelter of their humble abode, and the unity of their community formed a formidable defense against the biting cold and scarcity. The next time you find yourself shivering on a cold winter's day, spare a thought for these hardy souls of yesteryears and their enduring legacy. Let us now journey to the heart of the medieval village, where the peasants, the backbone of medieval society, resided. As the winter months arrived, their lives transformed, dictated by the harsh elements. Imagine the scene as the first snowflakes began to fall, blanketing the ground in a pristine white. The once bustling village square became desolate and quiet, save for the crackling fires emanating from the cottages, smoke billowing out from their chimneys. These cottages, humble structures built from local materials, stood as a testament to the peasants' resourcefulness. In regions abundant in timber, wooden planks were used for constructing walls and roofs. In contrast, areas with limited timber resources employed a technique called whale and daub. This involved weaving wooden strips and plastering them with a mixture of clay, straw, and animal dung. The roofs were typically thatched with straw or reed, providing adequate insulation against the cold. A central hearth served as a source of warmth and a cooking area, with smoke escaping through a hole in the roof. The peasants' diet also varied with the seasons during the summer. They indulged in a diverse range of food, including fresh fruits, vegetables, and dairy products. However, in winter, their diet primarily consisted of preserved foods. Drying, smoking, and salting were common methods of preservation. If fortunate enough to have meat, it was salted and smoked. Fruits and vegetables were dried or stored in root cellars. Grains were milled into flour for bread, and legumes served as a valuable source of protein. Winter also marked a period of relative rest for the medieval peasant. The fields lay barren, and there was little work to be done on the farm. Nevertheless, this downtime was not idle. The peasants utilized this time to mend tools, repair buildings, and weave cloth. Women spent extended hours spinning wool into yarn, a task that could be accomplished by the fire's light. They also crafted candles from animal fat, which would illuminate their homes during the dark winter nights. While the cold was harsh, it also brought certain advantages. For instance, the freezing ground made it easier to transport heavy loads, logs, stones, and other heavy materials. Frozen rivers and lakes provided a means of travel and transport. In fact, in some regions, ice roads formed an extensive network of transportation during the winter months. In terms of clothing, the peasants layered themselves to combat the cold. They wore tunics made from wool or hemp, and cloaks were a common garment. Footwear typically made from leather and stuffed with straw for added insulation protected against the biting wind. Hoods, mittens, and scarves offered further protection. While the wealthy could afford fur, the average peasant relied on layered clothing and huddling together for warmth. During the harsh winter months, peasants found solace and warmth in their community. They gathered around the hearth, sharing stories, songs, traditions, and folklore, fostering kinship and camaraderie. The church also played a crucial role, providing spiritual comfort and sometimes physical aid to the most vulnerable. Despite the challenges, the medieval peasant winter was not a time of despair. Instead, it was a testament to their resilience, their ability to adapt and survive in the face of adversity. They found ways to thrive, relying on their resourcefulness, community, and indomitable spirit. As we conclude this section, imagine once again the snow-covered medieval village, the cottages with their smoke-filled chimneys, and the peasants huddled together for warmth. Their lives were not easy, but they persevered, finding joy and warmth even in the coldest winter. As you drift off to sleep, let their resilience inspire you, reminding you of the strength within us all. In the midst of the harshest winter, the medieval peasant life was a testament to human resilience and the determination to survive. The coldest months tested their mettle, pushing them to the brink. Yet they found ways to endure and persist. This section will delve into the various techniques and strategies employed by medieval peasants to withstand freezing temperatures and keep the biting cold at bay. Firstly, let's consider their homes. Primarily constructed from whale and daub, a mixture of mud, straw, and animal dung. These insulated structures served as the first line of defense against the cold. The thick and sturdy walls provided a formidable barrier against the icy winds. The roofs of these dwellings were thatched with straw or reeds, providing additional insulation. Inside, the floors were covered with rushes or straw to offer some protection against the cold ground. A central hearth served as a source of heat and a place for cooking food. This simple yet effective design made the most of the available materials and resources, creating a warm and comfortable living space. Next, let's explore their clothing. Layers were essential for survival. Peasants wore undergarments made of linen. The outer layers were typically wool, a material renowned for its excellent insulating properties. A thick woolen cloak would be draped over the shoulders, providing an extra layer of warmth. They also wore mittens or gloves and wrapped their feet in cloth or wore wooden clogs to shield them from the freezing ground. These clothing items were crucial for keeping them warm during the coldest days and nights. Food was another critical factor in their survival. The peasants' diet consisted mainly of grains, legumes, vegetables, and occasionally a small amount of meat. During the winter, they relied on preserved foods, such as pickles, dried fruits, cured meats, and grains stored from the autumn harvest. These hearty and nutritious foods provided the energy needed to endure the cold. They also brewed ale and mead, which were believed to offer warmth, and in some cases might have been the only source of safe drinking water when sources froze over. Firewood was a vital resource during the harsh winter. Gathering and storing enough firewood before the onset of winter was a top priority for every family. The wood was used to heat their homes and cook their food. This continuous cycle of gathering, chopping, and storing was done with the understanding that their survival depended on it. Amidst these challenging conditions, social structures and community bonds played a significant role in their survival. Villages operated as a collective unit, sharing resources and labor. If a family couldn't gather enough firewood, for instance, their neighbors would step in to help. This sense of community and mutual aid was a lifeline for many during the coldest winters. Additionally, the church played a significant role in the survival of the medieval peasants. The church provided spiritual guidance and physical support. It often acted as a storehouse for grain and other food items that could be distributed to the needy during times of scarcity. The medieval peasants' struggle to survive the coldest winter was fraught with challenges. However, through ingenuity, resilience, and community support, they found ways to endure. Each year when spring arrived, it was a testament to their strength and determination, a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity in the face of adversity. As we move on to the next section, we will delve deeper into the role of the church and the spiritual beliefs that helped the medieval peasants navigate the harsh realities of their daily lives, especially during the coldest winter. As we delve deeper into the life of a medieval peasant during the winter season, it becomes clear that their existence was a careful balance of survival tactics, community cooperation, and an intimate knowledge of their environment. This harsh season was a test of endurance and ingenuity, where success meant seeing the advent of spring. During these relentless winters, shelter was of utmost necessity. The homes of peasants, also known as hovels, were typically constructed from whale and daub, a mixture of mud, straw, and manure, which provided surprisingly effective insulation against the biting cold. The roofs were thatched with straw, reeds, or rushes, offering a modicum of warmth and protection from the snow. A central hearth would be kept as light as possible, both for warmth and cooking purposes. The hovel was often filled with smoke as they lacked chimneys, and this would escape through a hole in the roof or the door. Fuel for the fire was a crucial resource during winter. While wood was the ideal fuel, it was often scarce due to deforestation and the Lord's restrictions on gathering from the local forest. Peasants resorted to using dried peat, animal dung, or even twisted straw called fire bundles. These alternatives produced less heat and more smoke, making the living conditions in the hovel less than ideal, but it was a necessary compromise for survival. Despite their impoverished status, medieval peasants were astute in their understanding of preserving food for the winter. Autumn was a flurry of activity as they harvested grains, fruits and vegetables, cured meats, and made cheese. Grains were milled into flour and stored for making bread, while fruits and vegetables were pickled or dried. Livestock, unable to be sustained through the winter, were slaughtered, and the meat was salted or smoked to prevent spoilage. Cheese was made from the milk of cows and goats, providing a high-calorie food source that could be stored for months. These preserved foods formed the basis of the peasants' winter diet, supplemented occasionally by hunting or fishing. Hunting and fishing were not always reliable food sources during the winter months. Many animals hibernated or migrated, and bodies of water often froze over, making it difficult to catch fish. However, peasants could trap small game like rabbits or birds, and ice fishing was a common practice. They would cut a hole in the ice and lower a line baited with pieces of meat or bread. If they were fortunate, this would provide a much-needed source of fresh protein during the lean winter months. Community was key in surviving these long, harsh winters. The feudal system, though rigid, fostered a sense of shared responsibility among the peasants. They worked together to gather and store firewood, repair and reinforce their homes against the winter storms, and share food resources. The Lord of the Manor also had a vested interest in the survival of his subjects, as they were his primary labor force. In particularly harsh winters, the Lord might distribute extra rations or offer shelter in the manor house itself. Religion played a significant role in the peasants' winter survival. The medieval church, a powerful institution, provided both spiritual and practical support. Prayer and faith were considered crucial tools for survival, and many winter festivals and traditions held religious significance. Additionally, the church often acted as a source of charity, providing food and clothing to those in need during the winter months. The trials of a medieval winter were undoubtedly harsh, with the threat of illness, hunger, and cold ever present. However, through a combination of practical skills, community cooperation, and religious faith, the medieval peasant found ways to endure and survive. Their resilience and resourcefulness in the face of such adversity are a testament to the human spirit's capacity to adapt and overcome. In the next section, we will explore more about the social and cultural aspects of the medieval peasants' life during winter, including festivities, leisure activities, and how they made use of the limited daylight hours. Their lives were not merely about survival, they also sought joy and meaning amidst the hardship. This aspect of their existence is often overlooked, but offers valuable insight into the human experience during this fascinating period in history. As the medieval winter drew on, the peasants adapted their daily routines to the ebbing daylight and deepening cold. They woke at dawn as always, but dawn came later and later as the solstice approached. They had to make the most of the daylight hours, squeezing in as much work as possible before nightfall, when the only light available was the dim glow of the hearth fire or the feeble flicker of a rush light. During the day, the men ventured outside to tend to the animals, chop firewood, and carry out any necessary repairs to the buildings or fences. Their clothing was simple, consisting of a woolen tunic and trousers, often accompanied by a cloak or shawl for added warmth. They wore wooden clogs stuffed with straw to insulate their feet against the cold ground. Despite the harsh conditions, they worked diligently, driven by the knowledge that their efforts directly impacted the survival of their family and village. Meanwhile, the women remained indoors as much as possible, seeking warmth and supervision of their children. They engaged in various tasks, including cooking, cleaning, spinning, weaving, mending, and ensuring the fire burned steadily for both warmth and cooking. They utilized a diverse range of fuels, from firewood and peat to dried cow dung, depending on availability. Maintaining the home fires was a crucial task, executed with a quiet sense of duty and determination. The children also played a vital role in the family's survival. The older ones assisted with chores both indoors and outdoors, while the younger ones found solace near the hearth, staying warm and safe under their mother's watchful eye. Occasionally they were sent out to gather firewood or fetch water from the well, tasks that could be accomplished swiftly without straying too far from the safety of home. Food was scarce during winter, forcing the peasants to rely on their stored provisions from the harvest season. Their diet primarily consisted of barley or rye bread, supplemented by preserved vegetables like onions, turnips, and cabbages. Meat was a rare treat, typically reserved for special occasions, but they might indulge in a small amount of cheese or milk from their family cow. Pottage, a thick and hearty stew made from readily available ingredients, was another staple of their meals. While their diet lacked variety, it provided the essential calories needed to endure the cold winter months. In the evenings they gathered around the fire, seeking warmth and companionship. Amidst the hardships of the medieval era, the peasants found solace in storytelling, singing, playing simple games, and perhaps savoring a small amount of homemade ale or cider. Despite the challenges, they discovered ways to entertain themselves and maintain their spirits. The long, cold winter nights, while difficult, also fostered a sense of closeness and camaraderie, strengthening the bonds of family and community. As the winter wore on, the peasants faced numerous obstacles, including the biting cold, food scarcity, and the looming threat of disease. They endured grueling work and relied on each other for survival. Yet they also found moments of joy, making the most of their limited resources and celebrating the simple pleasures of life. With the arrival of longer days and the first signs of spring, the peasants prepared for the upcoming growing season. They repaired their tools, cleaned their fields, and meticulously planned their crops. While they eagerly anticipated the warmth and abundance of summer, they also felt a profound sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, having weathered another winter. As we conclude this section, we are left with a vivid image of the resilience and tenacity of the medieval peasants. Despite the harsh conditions and numerous challenges they faced, they managed to survive and even thrive. Their story serves as a testament to the indomitable human spirit, reminding us of the strength and resilience that reside within us all. As we drift into sleep, we carry with us the stories of these hardy souls, their struggles and triumphs, providing a soothing lullaby of human resilience and hope. In the midst of the frigid winter of the Middle Ages, the survival of the medieval peasants depended on a delicate balance of foresight, physical labor, and the mercy of the elements. Their existence was characterized by ceaseless toil and hardship, and winter in particular was an exceptionally demanding season. The frosty months were not merely a period of biting cold and shortened days. They were a time of immense struggle and resilience. During the medieval period, peasants faced a perilous time marked by the threat of starvation, disease, and even death. To endure the harsh winter months, they meticulously prepared in advance. Long before the first frost, in the late summer, they diligently harvested their crops, knowing that the bounty would be their primary source of sustenance. Grains like wheat, barley, and rye were harvested and stored in granaries, their golden kernels promising sustenance in the bleak months ahead. These grains were ground into flour and baked into bread, a staple in the peasant diet. Without these gathered crops, the harsh winter would become a death sentence. In addition to grains, peasants also harvested vegetables such as cabbages, turnips, and onions. These were stored in cellars or pits, cool and dark places that prevented the vegetables from rotting. Fruits and berries were preserved for winter by drying or making them into preserves. These fruits and vegetables served as a vital source of food and provided much-needed vitamins and nutrients, helping to ward off disease during the winter months. Despite these preparations, the winter was a formidable challenge. Peasants had to contend with the dwindling daylight hours and the relentless cold. A typical medieval peasant's house was a simple one-room structure, with walls made of wattle and daub, a mixture of clay, straw, and animal dung. A thatched roof provided some insulation from the cold, but it was the hearth, a fireplace in the center of the house, that served as the primary source of heat. Firewood was essential for the winter, providing warmth and a means to cook food. Throughout the warmer months, peasants would gather wood, chopping down trees, and collecting fallen branches. This carefully stacked and stored wood would be ready to feed the hungry hearth when the cold set in. The fire, a lifeline, provided warmth and protection against the icy grip of winter that sought to invade every corner of the peasants' homes. The bitter cold was not the only peril winter posed. Snow and ice made travel hazardous, isolating villages and hindering trade and seeking help. In such times, the peasants had to rely on their community, sharing resources and supporting one another to survive. They would huddle around the fire, sharing stories and songs to lift their spirits, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The flickering firelight cast long shadows on the walls, a small beacon of warmth and life amidst the gloom of winter. Winter also brought with it a time of disease. The close quarters and poor sanitation facilitated the rapid spread of illnesses. Common ailments included respiratory infections caused by the cold and damp, as well as malnutrition-related diseases. The peasants had to rely on their knowledge of herbs and natural remedies to combat these illnesses, as professional medical help was often beyond their reach. Despite these challenges, the medieval peasants found ways to endure the winter. Their ingenuity, resilience, strong sense of community, and deep connection to the land enabled them to survive. Their lives were shaped by the seasons, and their survival was a testament to their tenacity and resourcefulness in the face of adversity. As the first signs of spring emerged and the icy grip of winter began to thaw, they would breathe a sigh of relief, knowing they had once again endured the coldest season. As we delve deeper into the harsh winters of the Middle Ages, let us remember the resilient spirit of the medieval peasants, their struggles, and their triumphs. They were not merely victims of their time, they were survivors. Their lives stand as a testament to the enduring human will to survive and thrive, even in the harshest conditions. Their story is not just a tale of survival, but a testament to the indomitable human spirit, a shared history that continues to inspire us. As the sun set, the winter nights in a medieval peasant's life were long, cold, and often harsh. The temperature plummeted rapidly, and darkness descended upon the land, bringing with it a bone-chilling cold that seeped into every corner of their modest homes. These homes were often single-room structures with walls made of whale and daub, a mixture of clay, straw, and animal dung. While this provided some insulation against the cold, it wasn't enough to keep it entirely at bay. The floors were made of compacted earth, covered with straw or reeds for warmth. The roof, thatched with straw, was an effective insulator, but could also be a fire hazard. There was usually a central hearth for cooking and heating, but the smoke often filled the room due to the lack of proper chimneys. This lack of ventilation could lead to respiratory problems, especially for the young and the elderly. Their beds were typically made of straw or dried ferns covered with a cloth or animal hide. It was common for the entire family to sleep together for warmth, layering in whatever clothing they had. Often they shared their living space with their livestock, whose body heat provided additional warmth. Domestic animals were not only essential for sustenance, but also played a vital role in providing heat during the bitterly cold nights. In these challenging conditions, the peasants' diet played a crucial role in their survival. Their food was simple yet hearty. The mainstays of their diet were dark bread made from rye or barley. Root vegetables like turnips, parsnips, and onions were common, as were cabbages and leeks. Peas, beans, and lentils were also eaten, often made into a thick, warming pottage, a kind of stew made from whatever ingredients were available and cooked over the open hearth. To preserve food for the winter months, they dried, smoked, or salted it. Meat was a rarity, usually only eaten on special occasions or during the winter when it was too costly to keep feeding the animals. During these cold months, the medieval peasants tapped into their carefully preserved food stores. The livestock that couldn't withstand the winter was slaughtered, providing them with a rare bounty of meat. They salted and smoked it to ensure its longevity throughout the season. Their drink was usually ale or beer made from barley, often brewed at home. Water wasn't always safe to drink, so these weak ales provided hydration and calories. In some regions they also had access to cider or mead. Milk was consumed and used to make cheese and butter, but it didn't last long, so it was often transformed into these longer-lasting products. The cold environment and lack of sunlight during winter also led to a vitamin D deficiency, crucial for calcium and phosphorus absorption. This deficiency could cause health problems like rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults, weakening the bones. However, the consumption of fish, especially oily fish like herring, which was often smoked or salted for preservation, provided some vitamin D. Despite these hardships, the medieval peasants found ways to survive and even find joy in the cold winter months. Winter was a time for storytelling and music. They gathered around the hearth, sharing tales, singing songs, and playing simple instruments. These were precious moments of warmth and light in the dark, cold winter, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit echoing down the ages to us. These were the people who, despite their hardships, laid the foundations of the world we live in today. As we drift off into sleep, we carry with us a sense of gratitude for their struggles and their strength. As we delve deeper into the lives of the medieval peasantry during the coldest winter months, it becomes evident that survival wasn't merely a result of chance. Rather, it was the result of meticulous planning, community cooperation, and a deep understanding of the land and its patterns. Now, let's delve into the ingenious methods employed by the peasantry to ensure their survival. One such method was food storage. In a society devoid of modern refrigeration, preserving and safeguarding food was an art form in itself. The peasants harvested crops during the warmer seasons, but they knew that the yield had to endure the harsh, barren winter months. Consequently, they devoted a considerable amount of time to drying, pickling, and smoking food. This was not just an individual endeavor, but a collective effort involving the entire village. They stored grains in airtight containers, hung meats in smokehouses, and sealed fruits in jars after pickling them. This carefully rationed food was supplemented by whatever meager produce the winter months offered. Shelter was another crucial aspect of winter survival. The homes of medieval peasants were constructed from whale and daub, a mixture of straw, clay, and animal dung. These thick insulating walls provided a barrier against the cold, while the thatched roofs prevented snow from entering. However, these homes were not flawless. They were often damp and cold, prompting the peasants to huddle around the hearth for warmth. To compensate for the lack of adequate heating, they used straw or reed mats on the floors and hung heavy tapestries or animal skins on the walls to retain heat. Clothing played an equally vital role in winter survival. Peasants wore layers of clothing made from readily available fabrics like wool, linen, and hemp. These materials could be woven into sturdy, warm garments. Cloaks and shawls were common, and footwear was typically made from leather or wood, lined with straw to provide insulation against the cold ground. In addition to these physical preparations, peasants also relied on their close-knit community for survival. During times of scarcity, neighbors would share food and resources, ensuring that no one went hungry. This sense of unity and solidarity was a defining characteristic of medieval peasant life, especially during the challenging winter months. Moreover, peasants understood the importance of maintaining their health during these strenuous times. They used herbal remedies and folklore medicine to treat common ailments. This knowledge was passed down through generations and was an integral part of their survival strategy. Equally important was their spiritual faith. The harsh winters were often seen as a test of their faith, and peasants would turn to prayer for comfort and guidance. The local church served as a refuge, a place of warmth and community where they could find solace amidst the hardship. As we delve deeper into the medieval winter, we begin to see the resilience and adaptability of the peasants. Despite the harsh conditions, they found ways to endure and even thrive. Their survival was a testament to their resourcefulness, their understanding of the natural world, and their ability to work together as a community. As you drift further into sleep, let the stories of these resilient individuals lull you into a peaceful slumber. Imagine the warmth of the hearth, the comfort of the community, and the satisfaction of a well-stocked pantry. As we continue our journey, let the tales of the medieval peasantry warm your dreams, just as their strategies warmed their homes during the coldest winters. In the heart of winter, the medieval peasantry's life was dictated by the sun. As the daylight hours dwindled, so did the workday. Their routine changed from the labor-intensive tasks of the warmer months to those that could be performed indoors or required less daylight. And yet the cold winter days were not entirely devoid of work for the diligent peasant. Peasant homes, lacking chimneys, relied on fireplaces to provide warmth. However, the smoke filled the living space before escaping through small roof openings. While the smoke deterred insects and reduced thatch flammability, it compromised indoor air quality during winter. Maintaining a consistent fire required a delicate balance. It needed to be large enough to warm the occupants, but not so large as to suffocate them with smoke. This skill, learned early and perfected over time, was crucial for survival. Firewood, a vital winter commodity, was collected throughout the year. The right to gather it was often included in peasants' tenancies with local lords. Knowing how much wood to gather, store properly, and burn efficiently was essential. The best firewood was dry-seasoned hardwood like oak, which burned slowly and provided substantial heat. Peasants spent countless autumn days gathering and chopping wood, preparing for the long winter. Beyond warmth, food preservation posed another significant challenge. In the months leading up to winter, peasants harvested crops and slaughtered most livestock, keeping only breeding animals. The meat was preserved through smoking or salting to ensure its survival. Vegetables, grains, and fruits were preserved in various ways. Grains were dried and stored for bread making throughout winter. Vegetables like onions, garlic, and carrots were often stored in Hessen sacks in a cool, dry place. Fruits were turned into preserves, and herbs were dried and stored for medicinal use. The significance of these food storage techniques cannot be overstated. During the harshest months of winter, a family's survival hinged on their successful storage of food during the harvest season. Food supplies often dwindled dangerously towards winter's end, forcing peasants to be resourceful in extending their resources. The winter period demanded meticulous resource management for medieval peasants. However, it also provided a respite from the relentless pace of work during the warmer months, with reduced daylight and fewer tasks. Winter was a time for rest and recuperation, allowing families to come together, share stories, and transmit crucial survival skills and knowledge. This period of relative calm also fostered spirituality, as the peasant calendar was marked by numerous religious holidays, many of which occurred during winter. These holidays offered a welcome break from daily routines and were often the only opportunities for peasants to enjoy leisure. Despite the hardships, winter was not merely a time of survival for medieval peasants. It was a time for rest, family bonding, and preparation for the coming year. The resilience, resourcefulness, and unwavering determination of these individuals laid the foundation for the societies we inhabit today. Their survival strategies, honed over centuries, provide us with a glimpse into a time characterized by harsh conditions, yet filled with a resolute hope for the return of spring. During the bitterly cold winters of the Middle Ages, the survival of peasants was indeed a formidable challenge that was met with remarkable resilience and ingenuity. They had to find innovative ways to stay warm, provide for themselves and their livestock, and maintain their homes and tools in a world devoid of modern conveniences. Fire, the primary source of warmth during the medieval era, was a common feature in peasant homes, serving as a vital source of comfort and sustenance. Peasants' homes, unlike the grand ornate hearths of nobility, were simple structures made of stone or clay. Wood was the primary fuel for these fires, but it was not always readily available, especially during harsh winters. Consequently, peasants resorted to alternative fuels like dried animal dung, peat and straw, which were readily available on their farms. As the fire crackled and roared, it not only provided warmth, but also served as a means of cooking food. During medieval times, peasants' diets were simple and hearty. In winter, they heavily relied on preserved foods, such as dried meats, pickled vegetables, and fermented foods like sauerkraut. These foods were stored in root cellars, dug deep into the ground to take advantage of the earth's natural insulation. Peasants also had a supply of grains like barley and rye, which they could use to make bread or porridge. Livestock played a crucial role in peasants' survival during winter. Sheep provided wool for making warm clothing and blankets. Before winter, peasants would shear the sheep, spin the wool into yarn, and then weave it into cloth. Chickens offered eggs, an excellent source of nutrition during the lean winter months. Cows provided milk, which could be transformed into cheese and butter. Maintaining homes and tools was another vital aspect of survival. Peasants' homes were typically constructed from whale and daub, a combination of woven branches and clay. Over time, the weather would cause the clay to crack and fall away, leaving gaps that allowed the cold winter wind to seep in. Therefore, before winter arrived, peasants would perform necessary repairs to ensure their homes were as insulated as possible. They would patch up any holes with fresh layers of straw on the roof for added insulation. Tools, too, needed to be in good working order, so sharpening blades, repairing handles, and oiling hinges were all common tasks as winter approached. Peasants also had to prepare for the lack of daylight during the winter months. They made candles from tallow and animal fat to provide light. The process of making tallow candles was labor-intensive, involving rendering the fat, soaking the wicks in the liquid tallow, and then allowing them to harden. But the payoff was the ability to extend their productive hours into the evening, which was particularly useful during the short winter days. The harsh reality of medieval winters often brought communities together. Neighbors would help each other with preparations and share resources. They would gather around the fire in the evenings, sharing stories and songs and finding comfort in each other's company. This sense of community was a vital part of their survival strategy. In conclusion, the survival of the medieval peasants during the coldest winter was a testament to their resilience and resourcefulness. They made the best use of what they had, worked together as a community, and found ways to thrive in the face of adversity. It is a fascinating glimpse into a time when survival was not taken for granted, but rather a hard-earned achievement. As we glide through the icy timeline of medieval winters, we now find ourselves situated in the heart of a particularly harsh cold season. Our subject of focus, the medieval peasants, had already expended considerable energy ensuring that their homes were well prepared for the encroaching chill. Their homes, generally composed of wattle and daub, were reinforced with thatching for insulation. The hearth would typically enjoy a steady supply of firewood, providing a valuable source of warmth for the entire household. Yet as we delve deeper into the realities of this period, we discover that the severity of the winter season was not merely a matter of cold temperatures. The winter season brought with it a scarcity of resources, making survival a formidable challenge for many. The medieval peasants faced a significant challenge during this time due to the limited availability of food. Their diet during the winter months was primarily restricted to preserved food, such as salted meat and pickled vegetables. These provisions were carefully stored in a cellar, a cool and dark place, to endure the long winter months. In addition to food scarcity, the winter also posed a challenge in terms of water availability. Rivers and streams often froze over, making it difficult for the peasants to access fresh water. To overcome this problem, they devised ingenious solutions, such as melting snow or ice over the fire to obtain drinking water. This labor-intensive process was essential for their survival. The lack of sunlight during the winter months led to vitamin D deficiency, resulting in a condition known as rickets. This disease, characterized by soft and weak bones, was prevalent among children. The peasants also faced the risk of frostbite and hypothermia. conditions that could be fatal if left untreated. Despite these harsh conditions, the peasants found ways to persevere. They huddled together for warmth, often sharing the same bed to conserve body heat. Whenever possible, they wore layered clothing made from wool or fur. Their feet were wrapped in straw or cloth to prevent frostbite, and they covered their heads with woolen caps or hoods. During these tough times, the villagers also turned to their community for support. The concept of barn raising, where the entire village would come together to construct a barn for a neighbor, exemplifies this community spirit. They shared resources, assisted each other in hunting and foraging, and provided care for the sick and elderly. The church held significant importance in the lives of medieval peasants, especially during the harsh winter months. It served as a place of worship and a source of physical and spiritual support. The church distributed food and clothing to the needy and provided shelter for those without homes. The clergy offered prayers and blessings, providing hope and resilience during challenging times. Winter also brought storytelling and the passing down of traditions. Peasants gathered around the fire, sharing tales of bravery and adventure, folklore and fables. These stories entertained and educated, offering a welcome distraction from the harsh realities of their surroundings. Despite adversities and hardships, medieval peasants demonstrated remarkable fortitude and resilience. Their survival strategies, born out of necessity and resourcefulness, serve as a poignant testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and adapt. As we journey through the frost-laden landscape of medieval winters, we gain a deeper appreciation for the trials and triumphs of these humble individuals whose stories continue to resonate across time. During these frosty months, the peasants faced another challenge: the scarcity of food. Their resourcefulness truly shone as they employed the preservation techniques they had carefully developed during the abundant seasons, ensuring their sustenance. The modest cottages of the sellers and laborers were filled with an array of preserved foods, salted meat and root vegetables stored in sand to prevent spoilage. Barrels of pickled cabbages and hard cheeses were common sights. While their winter diet may have been monotonous, it was sufficient to sustain them through the harsh weather. Grains harvested during the summer and autumn were a crucial part of the medieval peasant diet. These grains were milled into flour, which was used to make bread, a staple food item. The milling process, often carried out at the local lord's mill, was a communal task that brought the villagers together, strengthening social bonds in the face of adversity. The peasants also brewed ale from barley, as water was often unsafe to drink. Although weak, this ale was a vital source of calories during the winter months. Firewood was another essential resource. The lord of the manor typically controlled the local forests, and peasants were often limited in the amount of wood they could gather. Consequently, they had to be economical with their fuel. They often used peat, straw, and animal dung as additional sources of fuel. These materials were not as efficient as wood, but were abundant and inexpensive. The warmth provided by these humble fires was crucial for survival in the biting cold of the medieval winter. The homes of these peasants, while rudimentary, also played a role in their survival. The walls of their cottages were often made of whale and daub, a mixture of clay, straw, and animal dung. This material had excellent insulating properties, helping to retain heat inside the home. The thatched roofs, while prone to fire, also provided effective insulation. The interiors of these cottages were often smoky and dimly lit, with the family's livestock frequently sharing the living space to provide additional warmth. In the face of these harsh conditions, the community spirit of the medieval village was of utmost importance. Villages heavily relied on each other for survival, sharing resources, labor, and knowledge. During these challenging times, the bonds of kinship and neighborliness were strengthened, creating a sense of solidarity and mutual support. The church also played a crucial role in the lives of the peasants during the winter months. The promise of spiritual salvation provided comfort in the face of physical hardship. The church was often the only building in the village that was heated, offering a warm sanctuary where villagers could gather for worship and social interaction. The clergy also extended charity to those in need, distributing alms to the poorest villages. As the winter wore on, the peasants engaged in various indoor activities to pass the time. They mended tools, wove cloth, and repaired their homes. Children played simple games, while adults shared stories and sang songs. These activities not only kept them occupied, but also helped preserve their cultural heritage and oral traditions. Despite the harshness of the medieval winter, the peasants were not passive victims of their circumstances. They were resourceful, resilient, and adaptable, developing strategies to ensure their survival. They relied on their knowledge of the natural world and their ability to work together as a community. While life was certainly not easy for the medieval peasant during the winter months, their ingenuity and perseverance allowed them to endure. As we continue our journey through the medieval peasant's survival of the coldest winter, we can begin to appreciate the strength and tenacity of these individuals. So as you close your eyes and drift into slumber, imagine the warmth of the fire in a humble peasant's cottage, the comforting taste of a simple meal, and the close-knit community that helped them survive. In the unforgiving grip of a harsh medieval winter, the peasant class relied on a series of critical survival strategies to preserve and efficiently utilize their limited resources. Their ability to conserve, share, and creatively utilize what little they had was a testament to their resilience and resourcefulness. Waste was simply not an option during this time of survival, where making do with less and finding innovative ways to stretch their resources were paramount. Let's imagine a typical peasant household during these winter months. The house, usually constructed from whale and daub, a mixture of mud, clay, straw, and animal dung, was a simple structure with a thatched roof and a central hearth for warmth. The family resided in a single room, sharing the space with their animals. This arrangement was not merely for convenience. The body heat of the animals provided crucial warmth in the severe cold. Their diet during these months was predominantly carbohydrates, as vegetables were scarce and meat was a luxury few could afford. The mainstays of their diet were dark, coarse bread made from rye or barley, and pottage, a thick stew made from grains, vegetables, and whatever scraps of meat they could manage to obtain. To supplement their diet, they foraged for nuts, berries, and wild greens. Food preservation became a vital skill in these times. Peasants knew how to salt, smoke, and dry meat for long-term storage. Vegetables like cabbages and turnips were stored in pits dug into the ground, where the earth's natural insulation kept them fresh. Fruits were often dried or preserved in honey. Milk was transformed into cheese and butter, which could be stored for extended periods. Firewood, another precious resource, was meticulously collected and stored during the warmer months, knowing it would be essential for heating and cooking during the harsh winter. Additionally, dried animal dung was used as fuel. Every scrap of wood and piece of dung was collected and utilized with utmost care. Clothing played a crucial role in the survival of the peasant class during the winter. Their garments were primarily made of wool, providing excellent insulation against the biting cold. They would layer their clothing, wearing multiple tunics and cloaks. Shoes were typically crafted from leather, and during the coldest months, they would stuff straw or hay into their shoes for added warmth. The winter months were also a time for communal activities. Peasants would gather in local taverns or in each other's homes, sharing stories, songs, and whatever food and drink they had. These gatherings served not only as entertainment, but also as a means of mutual support and communal survival. The church held significant importance in the lives of the peasants. It offered spiritual solace and practical assistance. The church provided food and shelter for the impoverished, and its feast days provided a welcome respite from the hardships of daily life. As the winter persisted, the peasants eagerly anticipated the arrival of spring, when the earth would thaw and they could resume planting their crops. This cycle of survival and renewal exemplified the resilience and resourcefulness of the medieval peasant. Despite the challenges and the lack of sophisticated survival techniques by modern standards, the medieval peasants were effective in making the most of their circumstances and finding ways to endure and thrive. As we drift off to sleep, we can take a moment to appreciate the strength and resilience of these medieval peasants, whose lives were a constant struggle, yet who managed to endure and flourish. As we delve deeper into the harsh reality of the medieval winter, we find ourselves amidst the biting cold of February, the coldest month of the year. The world seemed to be in perpetual twilight, with the sun barely visible above the horizon. The weak rays of the sun barely managed to thaw the frozen earth. The ground was a solid mass of ice, and the rivers and streams had frozen solid. The trees stood bare and skeletal against the grey sky. Peasants spent most of their time indoors, seeking refuge from the biting cold in their humble abodes. Their homes, though small and simple, were their haven against the merciless elements. Constructed from wood and daub with thatched roofs, these structures were designed to retain heat. A central hearth provided warmth and a place to cook meals, while the smoke wafted up and out through a hole in the roof. Families huddled together for warmth, sharing body heat as they slept in close proximity on straw mattresses. Even the hardy animals were brought indoors during severe weather, sharing the living space with the humans. This was not just out of kindness, but also a practical measure. The animals' body heat contributed to the warmth of the home, and their presence ensured their survival through the winter and their ability to work come spring. Fuel for the fire was a precious commodity. Most of the wood had been gathered during the warmer months and stored for winter use. However, as the winter wore on, supplies dwindled. Peasants had to be judicious in their use of wood, burning it only when necessary. They also supplemented their supply with other materials like peat, dried dung, and straw. The peasants' diet during these winter months was meager and monotonous. Most of their food came from stores of grain, dried fruits, and salted meat that had been prepared during the harvest. Sometimes they were supplemented with whatever could be scavenged from the frozen landscape, such as nuts, berries, and the occasional game caught in snares. Despite the hardships, life was not entirely bleak. Winter was also a time for certain indoor activities and chores. Women would spin thread and weave cloth, a task that required a steady hand and patience. Men would repair tools and equipment, preparing for the planting season ahead. Children would play simple games, their laughter a welcome respite from the otherwise bleak atmosphere. Religion held a significant place in the life of a medieval peasant, especially during the harsh winter months. The church provided solace and hope, promising the return of warmth and abundance. Festivals like Candlemas, celebrated on February 2nd, brought a glimmer of joy and respite. It marked the midpoint of winter, halfway between the shortest day and the spring equinox, a reminder that spring was not far away. Despite the hardships, peasants demonstrated remarkable resilience. They understood the cyclical nature of the seasons and knew that with the arrival of spring, life would once again flourish. The harsh winter months tested their endurance and adaptability, showcasing their resourcefulness and sheer will to survive. As we conclude this segment of our journey, we gain a deeper appreciation for the strength and tenacity of the medieval peasant. Their struggles and triumphs against the coldest winter teach us valuable lessons about resilience, resourcefulness, and the indomitable human spirit. As you drift off into sleep, let these thoughts guide your dreams, painting images of a world long past, yet resonating with echoes of our own. In the depths of the medieval winter, peasants faced harsh realities that were far removed from the romanticized images of snow-covered castles and jousting knights. Life for a peasant during the coldest months was a grueling test of endurance and survival. Yet, despite the hardship, they managed to carve out a semblance of existence, relying on a combination of resourcefulness, community support, and a profound connection to the natural world. The first line of defense against winter's chill for the medieval peasant was their home. Typically a one-room structure made from timber and whale and daub, a mixture of clay, straw, and animal dung, served as their shelter. The roofs were thatched with reed or straw. While these materials may seem primitive by today's standards, they effectively insulated against the cold. The homes were often small, limiting the interior space that required heating. A central hearth provided warmth and a place to cook meals. The family, along with their livestock, would huddle around this hearth, sharing body heat and the fire's warmth. To sustain them through the winter months, the family harvested food in the autumn, stored it, and carefully rationed it. Cabbage, turnips, and other root vegetables were staples of the winter diet. Stored in pits or cellars, where the cool, stable temperatures prevented spoilage. Grains were milled into flour and baked into bread, providing much-needed carbohydrates. Meat was a rare luxury, but when available, it was preserved through salting or smoking. Peasants also foraged for nuts and berries, adding variety and essential nutrients to their diet. However, food was not the sole concern. Water sources often froze in winter, making it difficult to access drinking water. To address this, peasants stored water in barrels or jugs, keeping it within their homes where it was less likely to freeze. They also harvested ice from ponds and lakes, storing it in ice houses for use in warmer months. Clothing was another crucial component of winter survival. Most peasants could not afford the furs and wools worn by the nobility, so they relied on simpler materials. Woolen tunics and leggings were common, providing much-needed warmth. Thick cloaks, often lined with sheepskin, were used for additional insulation. Footwear was typically made from leather or wooden clogs, stuffed with straw to keep the feet warm. Despite these hardships, there were moments of joy and communal spirit. Winter was a time for storytelling, music, and games. Families and neighbors would gather around the hearth, sharing stories and songs passed down through generations. These traditions helped ward off the darkness and cold, fostering a sense of community and shared experience. The church played a significant role in the lives of medieval peasants during winter. Religious holidays like Christmas and Epiphany were marked by special services and feasts. These occasions provided a respite from the daily struggles of winter survival, offering an opportunity for celebration and communal bonding. Winter survival was a communal effort, requiring the collective resources and labor of the entire village. Everyone had a role to play, from the youngest child gathering firewood to the eldest grandmother preparing meals. This sense of collective responsibility and mutual aid was crucial to their survival. The harshness of winter brought its own beauty, the stark snow-covered landscapes and the crystal-clear winter nights. It was this profound connection to the natural world that grounded the medieval peasant and gave them the strength to endure. Despite the hardships, they found a way to survive, adapt, and ultimately thrive. The tale of the medieval peasant's winter survival is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder of our collective strength and adaptability. It is a story of survival against the odds of community and shared experience, and of the profound connection between humans and the natural world. It is a story that continues to resonate, reminding us of our own capacity to endure and thrive even in the harshest of circumstances. As winter approached, medieval peasants would turn their attention to the storage and preservation of food. This was a crucial task, as their survival during the harsh winter months depended on it. In the autumn, they would harvest their summer crops, such as barley, oats, and peas. The grains would then be threshed and winnowed, a process that separated the wheat from the chaff. The grain, crucial for survival during winter, was stored in large wooden barrels, or the peasant's granary. Keeping the grain dry and pest-free was paramount, as a spoiled harvest could lead to famine. The peasantry also preserved vegetables like onions, garlic, and cabbages by drying or salting them. Root vegetables like turnips and carrots were often stored in the ground, insulated by straw to prevent freezing. Apples, pears, and other fruits were gathered and made into preserves, or hard cider, a popular peasant drink. Livestock played a vital role in their survival. In autumn, animals were assessed, and decisions were made about which would be slaughtered and which would be kept for breeding. Ideally, peasants kept enough animals to maintain their herd or flock without depleting their winter stores. Slaughtered animals provided meat, and every part of the animal was used to minimize waste. Meat was smoked, salted, or dried to preserve it. Medieval peasants also relied heavily on fish for sustenance. Rivers, ponds, and the sea offered an abundant food source. Fish were salted or smoked to last through winter. Inland communities without access to the sea could still rely on freshwater fish from rivers or man-made ponds. Hunting and gathering supplemented their diet. Men and boys hunted for game, while women and girls gathered nuts, berries, and edible plants. Hunting not only provided food, but also valuable materials like fur and leather. However, hunting rights were often controlled by local nobles, and peasants could face punishment for poaching. Peasants' homes were built to withstand harsh winter weather. They were typically constructed from a mixture of wood, wattle, and daub, with thatched roofs. The thick walls, insulated with straw or animal skins, kept the cold out and the heat in. Inside, a fire burned continuously throughout the winter, its smoke escaping through a hole in the roof, deterring insects and vermin. Despite their best efforts, winter was a formidable challenge for medieval peasants. Food supplies could dwindle, and the cold was severe. Illness was rampant, and many perished. Yet they demonstrated remarkable resourcefulness and resilience, adapting and surviving in this harsh and unforgiving environment. Winter also fostered a sense of community. The long, cold nights were spent huddled around the fire, sharing stories, songs, and games. It was a time for rest and recuperation after the arduous work of the summer and autumn. Despite the hardships, a sense of camaraderie and shared experience bound the community together. It's important to remember that while these were challenging times, they were also periods of innovation and adaptation. The methods the peasants employed to endure the winter months were refined over centuries, passed down through generations. Their resilience and resourcefulness are a testament to human ingenuity and determination. In many ways, the strategies they employed remain relevant today, reminding us of our roots and our enduring connection to the natural world. As the snow blanketed the land, the daily routine of the medieval peasants underwent a significant transformation. The once thriving agricultural fields lay barren, covered in a thick blanket of snow, yet amidst this stark and harsh landscape, life persisted. It was a testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of these humble folk, who, with their limited means, managed to find ways to survive the harshest winters. Let's delve into the topic of food. During the extended winter months, when farming became nearly impossible, the peasants had to depend on the food they had stored from the previous harvest. Preserving food was a critical task that required utmost care and precision. Peasants preserved fruits and vegetables by pickling them in vinegar or fermenting them. They also smoked or salted meats to extend their shelf life. Smoking meat involved exposing it to smoke from burning wood, which not only preserved the meat but also enhanced its flavor. Cabbage was a particularly important vegetable during these times. It was easy to grow, could be harvested late into the season, and when fermented into sauerkraut, it could be stored for a long time. Sauerkraut also had the added benefit of being high in vitamin C, a nutrient that was scarce during the winter months, helping the peasants stave off scurvy. Beyond food, the peasants had to consider warmth. Their homes, often made of wattle and daub, were not well insulated. To keep the cold out, they hung heavy fabrics or animal hides on the walls and over the windows. The hearth was the heart of the home during winter, providing both heat and a place to cook. Firewood needed to be collected and stored in large quantities before winter arrived, as gathering more would be nearly impossible once the snow fell. In these homes, families huddled together for warmth. The concept of personal space was not a luxury they could afford in the cold of winter. They shared not only their living space, but also their sleeping quarters. The close quarters, while not ideal, provided much-needed body warmth during the freezing nights. Clothing was another crucial aspect of winter survival. Peasants layered their clothing to trap body heat. They wore woolen garments because wool has excellent insulating properties. Animal pelts were also used to make warm cloaks and mittens. During the day, when they were not occupied with survival tasks, the peasants found solace in their faith. The church played a pivotal role in the lives of medieval peasants, and winter was no exception. The church calendar was filled with feasts and holy days that disrupted the monotony of the winter months. These occasions were not only religious observances, but also opportunities for social interaction and communal support. In the absence of modern amenities, the medieval peasants' survival during the coldest winter was a testament to human resilience and resourcefulness. Despite the challenges, they found ways to endure and adapt, drawing on their knowledge of the land, their skills in food preservation, and their faith in God. The medieval peasants' experience during winter offers us a unique perspective into their daily lives. Their ingenious and effective survival strategies are a testament to the human spirit's adaptability and resilience. And in their story, we find a profound appreciation for the comforts of our modern lives. As we drift off to sleep tonight, let's express gratitude for our warm homes, abundant food, and the ease with which we navigate the challenges of winter. In the heart of the medieval winter, the daily life of the peasants took on a distinct rhythm. The cold was not merely a discomfort, but a genuine threat to survival, and every aspect of their lives was influenced by the weather. The landscape was often blanketed with snow, and the biting cold penetrated even the thickest walls of their humble dwellings. With the fields lying dormant, there was limited agricultural work to be done, and the peasants had to find alternative ways to occupy their time and stay warm. One such activity was gathering around the hearth, the central feature of the peasant home. This was where they cooked their meals, warmed themselves, and shared stories to pass the time. The hearth served as more than just a source of heat. It was a sacred place where the family would convene to share meals, engage in conversations, and strengthen their bonds. In the winter, the fire would have been kept burning almost constantly, providing a small but essential source of warmth and light during the long, dark nights. Besides keeping warm, the peasants had to find ways to sustain themselves during the winter months. The harvest would have been long over by the time winter arrived, so they would have had to rely on their stores of grain and other food supplies. They would have extensively used pickling, drying, and smoking to preserve food for the winter. Additionally, their diet was often supplemented with wild game and fish. The saying, "make hay while the sun shines," was a literal guideline for these people. They worked diligently during the warmer months to ensure they had enough food to eat when the cold set in. Craftsmanship also played a crucial role in the lives of the peasants during the winter months. With agricultural work at a standstill, they would have had more time to devote to their crafts. This was the time when they would repair tools, mend clothes, and create new ones. These skills were absolutely vital for their survival. Far from being idle, the peasants would have been very busy during the winter months, always ensuring they were prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. The church was another significant factor in the lives of the peasants during the winter. Religious festivals and holy days provided a much-needed break from the monotony of daily life and were often the highlight of the winter season. The celebration of Christmas in particular was a time of joy and festivity. Despite the hardships of their lives, the peasants knew how to enjoy themselves and would have celebrated these occasions with music, dancing, and feasting. The winter was also a time for reflection and planning for the future. The peasants would have taken stock of their resources, assessed their current situation, and planned for the coming year. They would have made decisions about what to plant, how much to set aside for taxes and rents, and how to improve their circumstances. Despite the hardships they endured, the peasants were not passive victims of their circumstances. They actively participated in their survival, constantly contemplating and planning for the future. The harshness of winter also fostered a sense of community among the peasants. They relied on each other for support and assistance during times of need. If someone fell ill or required help, the community would rally around them. The bonds formed during these challenging times were often strong and enduring, playing a crucial role in the peasants' survival strategy. Remarkably resilient, the peasants had to be. Survival was an ongoing struggle, and the winter was the most arduous period of all. However, through a combination of resourcefulness, hard work, and community support, they managed to endure year after year. The life of a medieval peasant was far from easy, but they were survivors, and their story serves as a testament to the strength of the human spirit. As spring approached, the peasants would experience a sense of relief. The worst of the winter was over, and they could anticipate the warmer months ahead. The return of the sun would have been a cause for celebration, a sign that they had overcome another winter, and a reminder of the cyclical nature of life and the promise of renewal. As we journey through the harsh winter of history, we can find solace in the resilience and tenacity of these medieval peasants and perhaps draw inspiration from their story. As we delve deeper into the frigid winters of the Middle Ages, we continue our exploration of the lives of the everyday peasants and their remarkable ability to survive against the odds. We have already discussed the significance of communal living, food preservation, and livestock reliance. In this section, we will examine the roles of clothing, religion, and fuel management in the peasants' struggle to endure the winter months. Clothing, much like food, was prepared in advance and stored for the colder months. The primary materials used were wool, linen, and leather. Wool, in particular, was highly valued for its warmth and durability. It was spun into yarn and then woven into cloth, a time-consuming process often carried out by women and children. To trap heat, clothing was layered with several garments worn on top of each other. Cloaks were worn over tunics and leggings, often with a hood to protect against wind and snow. Footwear was typically made of leather and stuffed with straw or dried grass for additional insulation. Religion held significant importance in the lives of medieval peasants. The church served as a place of worship, community, and refuge. During the coldest months, it became a gathering place where villagers sought warmth and comfort. The church also provided spiritual support, offering prayers and blessings for the safety and well-being of the villagers. The belief in divine protection amidst harsh conditions instilled hope and resilience in the peasants. Fuel was a precious commodity during the winter months. Firewood was collected throughout the year and carefully rationed. It was primarily used for cooking and heating, with small fires kept burning throughout the day and night. In some regions, peat, a type of fuel made from decaying vegetation, was also used. It was dug from the ground, dried, and stored for winter use. Fuel usage was carefully managed to conserve as much as possible. The survival of medieval peasants during the coldest winters was a testament to their resourcefulness and resilience. They adapted to their environment, utilizing available resources and relying on communal support and faith to endure the harsh conditions. As we journey deeper into the world of the medieval peasant, we'll explore their survival strategies, including herbal medicine, storytelling, and the significance of rest and sleep. Let the soothing tales of these resourceful peasants lull us into a peaceful slumber, reminding us of the strength of the human spirit, the power of community, and the enduring will to survive. In our next section, we'll delve further into their world, but for now, let their stories guide you into a restful sleep. Much like the peasants huddled around their fires, listening to the soft crackle of the wood and the whispered tales of their ancestors, the winter season held a stark duality for the rural peasantry. On one hand, it offered a time of relative rest. As the fields lay dormant under their frosty blanket, the frantic labor of planting and harvesting was temporarily halted, allowing for shorter, slower days within the warmth and safety of the homestead. On the other hand, winter was a time of great hardship, a test of endurance against the frigid elements and dwindling food supplies. Let's explore how the medieval peasants weathered these challenging months. The harvest played a crucial role in the winter months. The bountiful fall harvest provided the majority of food needed to sustain a family. Grains like barley, oats, and rye were harvested and stored in granaries, while vegetables such as turnips, onions, and cabbages were stored in root cellars. Fruits were dried or made into preserves, and nuts were gathered and stored for long-term use. Preservation techniques were of utmost importance during this time, as refrigeration was unavailable. Medieval peasants relied heavily on drying, fermenting, salting, and smoking to prevent food spoilage. Fish and meat were often salted or smoked over a fire to ensure their preservation for the long winter months. This process not only extended the shelf life of these foods, but also introduced a distinctive flavor that was highly appreciated during the dreary winter months. Livestock management during winter was also crucial. Due to the high cost of feeding and sheltering a large number of animals, most of the herd was slaughtered. Only the strongest and most productive animals, such as the breeding stock and milk cows, were kept alive. The slaughtered animals provided a fresh supply of meat initially, while the remainder was preserved for later use. Winter was also a time for indoor activities for medieval peasants. These included mending tools, repairing homes, making clothes, and crafting essential items for daily life. The limited daylight hours were filled with tasks that could be accomplished by the light of the fire, or with the help of candles. Even children were expected to contribute with tasks suitable for their age and abilities. In terms of warmth, peasants heavily relied on their hearths. The hearth served as a source of heat, a place for cooking, and a focal point for family and community gatherings. Fuel for the fire was primarily wood, but peat and dried animal dung were also used in areas where wood was scarce. Firewood was a precious commodity and required careful rationing to ensure it lasted through the winter. Despite the harsh conditions, winter was also a time of celebration for the rural peasantry. The calendar was marked by various religious and secular festivities that provided a welcome respite from the hardships of the season. Christmas was a particularly significant celebration, characterized by feasting, drinking, and merriment that lasted up to 12 days. However, winter was not solely a time of work and no play for the medieval peasant. Leisure activities, albeit few and far between, were still an integral part of daily life. Storytelling, singing, and playing music were popular pastimes. Games of skill and chance were enjoyed by both adults and children, while outdoor activities like skating and snowball fights provided entertainment during the pleasant weather. In summary, the medieval peasant survival through the coldest winter was a testament to human resilience and resourcefulness. It required careful planning, diligent work, and perhaps a touch of luck. Despite the hardships of the winter season, it was also a time for rest, reflection, and communal solidarity. It was a time of survival, but also of celebration and joy, as the people eagerly anticipated the arrival of spring and the promise of a new growing season. In the seventh section of our deep exploration into the lives of medieval peasants during the coldest winter, we delve into the realm of clothing and its significant role in their survival. During the harsh winters of medieval times, fabric was a precious commodity, and the peasants went to great lengths to ensure they had adequate clothing to protect themselves from the biting cold. Most peasants could not afford to purchase new clothing or fabric, so they relied on hand-me-downs, clothing swaps, or homespun fabrics. Wool was the most popular material for clothing due to its warmth and durability. It was often spun at home by the women of the household, an activity that consumed a considerable amount of their time but was essential for their survival. The spun wool was then woven into rough, thick fabric, which was skillfully cut and sewn into tunics, cloaks, hoods, and leggings. Clothing was usually loose-fitting to allow for layers to be worn underneath, providing additional warmth. Footwear was another crucial aspect of winter clothing. In the harshest winters, frostbite was a real danger, especially for the peasants who had to venture out into the cold for work. Shoes were often made from leather, which was sometimes treated with animal fats to make it more waterproof. In exceptionally cold conditions, peasants would stuff straw or hay into their shoes for added insulation. In some cases, wooden patterns were worn over the shoes to elevate the wearer off the cold, wet ground. Gloves and mittens, similar to shoes, were also common winter apparel. They were typically made from leather with woolen linings for enhanced warmth. Peasants would also wrap their hands in cloths or rags for extra insulation when necessary. Hoods were preferred over hats because they could be pulled down to cover the neck and shoulders, providing greater protection against the cold. Despite these provisions, the clothing of the time was often insufficient to fully shield against the biting cold. Chroniclers of the time frequently described the hardships of winter, highlighting how the cold would seep into the bones, making every movement an ordeal. However, the peasants were resilient and found ways to adapt. They would layer their clothing, sometimes wearing 2 or 3 tunics simultaneously. They would huddle together for warmth, often sharing beds to conserve heat, and they would keep fires burning as much as possible, even when fuel was scarce. The significance of clothing to a medieval peasant's survival cannot be overstated. It was not merely a matter of comfort, but of life and death. The clothing they wore was the result of countless hours of labor, careful planning, and resourcefulness. It was a testament to their resilience and ingenuity, their determination to endure even the harshest conditions. As we delve deeper into the captivating history of how medieval peasants endured the coldest winter, we gain a profound understanding of their daily lives and struggles. We witness not only the hardships they faced, but also the strength and resourcefulness they demonstrated in overcoming them. It stands as a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity, a force that continues to inspire us even today. As you drift into sleep, let your mind wander back to the medieval times. Imagine the spinning of wool, the sewing of garments, and the gathering of firewood. Picture the peasants huddled together for warmth, their breath misting in the frigid air. Feel the rough texture of woolen fabric, the heat of a crackling fire, and the chill of a frosty morning. As you immerse yourself in this vivid mental journey, may you find comfort, peace, and a deep, restful sleep. In the next section, we'll continue our exploration. As we delve deeper into the harsh realities of a bitter medieval winter, we can't overlook the warmth that often emanated from the hearth of the humble peasants' homes. The hearth, a simple stone or brick fireplace, was the heart of a medieval peasant's home. It provided warmth for the inhabitants and a place to cook their meals. Smoke from the fire escaped through a hole in the roof, while the heat circulated throughout the small dwelling. This circular flow of warmth became a lifeline for the peasants during the coldest winters. The peasants' diet during winter was simple but nourishing. They relied heavily on preserved foods, grains, and any animals they had raised. Cabbage was a staple vegetable, often fermented into sauerkraut for preservation, providing essential vitamins during the winter months. Root vegetables such as turnips and parsnips were stored in straw-filled boxes and kept in cool, dry locations. The grain, primarily barley, rye, and oats, was ground into flour and used for baking bread. Animals played a vital role in the peasants' winter survival. Pigs were commonly raised and slaughtered in the late autumn, providing meat that could be preserved for the winter months. The peasants used every part of the pig. The meat was salted or smoked, the fat was rendered for lard, and the blood was used to make black pudding. Chickens provided eggs, and cows offered milk, which could be turned into butter or cheese. The peasants, relying on the local wildlife for sustenance, found hunting, though a privilege of the nobility, accessible to them. They trapped small game like rabbits and birds, while fish, a valuable food source, could be caught near rivers or lakes. If a peasant resided near a body of water, they could fish through holes in the ice, preserving their catch in salt or smoke. Beyond physical sustenance, their deep faith fortified their mental fortitude. The medieval church, an integral part of every community, provided spiritual comfort and a sense of unity. Special masses and processions during the winter months encouraged the faithful to endure the hardships with patience and hope. Community was another key to survival. The shared experience of facing the harsh winter forged a bond among the peasants. They gathered in each other's homes, sharing food, stories, and warmth, finding emotional respite from the bleak winter landscape. To entertain themselves during the long winter months, they engaged in storytelling, passing down tales of heroism, adventure, and humor through generations. Music and dance also played a significant role, with individuals playing simple instruments like flutes and drums, while others danced to the rhythm. Despite the hardships, the peasants found joy and satisfaction in their simple lives. The winter, though harsh and demanding, offered them an opportunity to come together, share resources, and support one another. Their resilience and resourcefulness during the coldest winters are a testament to the indomitable human spirit. As we conclude this section, let the stories of these humble folk lull you into a peaceful slumber, knowing that, like them, we too can endure the harshest winters and find warmth in the simplest of things. In the most frigid winters, the survival of a medieval peasant hinged on the amount of food and fuel they had stored. The autumn harvest held immense significance in this regard, as the success or failure of the crops directly impacted the peasants' well-being during the subsequent winter. A bountiful harvest ensured a surplus of food to endure the cold months, while a poor harvest could lead to severe famine and hardship. During the winter, grain served as the primary food source for peasants. It was typically ground into flour and used to make bread or gruel. If fortunate, peasants might also have access to preserved meats, vegetables, and fruits. These were salted or dried during the warmer months and stored for later consumption. Dairy products like cheese and butter, as well as legumes such as peas and beans, were also common. Firewood was another crucial resource for peasants during the winter. It provided warmth, was essential for cooking, and melted snow into water. Peasants began gathering and chopping firewood in the late summer and early autumn, storing it in a dry place to ensure its readiness for use when the cold weather arrived. Fire also played a vital role in warding off predators. In the depths of winter, when food was scarce, wild animals posed a significant threat to a peasant's livestock. A well-maintained fire could deter these animals and protect the peasant's valuable resources. The clothing of a peasant in the Middle Ages further contributed to their ability to survive the winter. Most peasants wore a simple tunic made of wool. They also had a cloak that could be draped over their shoulders for additional warmth. On their feet, they wore wooden clogs or leather shoes, often stuffed with straw for insulation. However, perhaps the most crucial factor in a peasant's survival was community. In the unforgiving reality of medieval life, cooperation and mutual aid were indispensable. Villagers collaborated to gather and store food, chop and collect firewood, and share resources. During extreme hardships, such as severe winters or poor harvests, this communal spirit proved life-saving. Similarly, the church played a pivotal role in a peasant's life, especially during winter when food was scarce. After Mass, peasants often received a small meal from the church. This became particularly crucial during harsh winters when food supplies dwindled. Despite the hardships they faced, medieval peasants demonstrated remarkable resilience. Through careful preparation, resourcefulness, and a strong sense of community, they weathered the coldest winters and endured the challenges of their environment. Today we can learn much from their perseverance and adaptability in the face of adversity. As we conclude this section, let the resilience of these medieval peasants inspire us. Their survival during those frigid winters stands as a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Let their stories serve as a reminder that no matter how bleak and challenging our circumstances may seem, we possess the capacity to endure. We can draw strength from the examples of those who came before us and find solace in the knowledge that we too can survive and even thrive in the face of adversity. As we embark on the final quarter of our journey through the harsh medieval winters, let's turn our attention to the resilient peasantry, the backbone of society. The peasants of the Middle Ages offer an intriguing case study of survival, resilience, and the indomitable human spirit. During this era, the majority of the population resided in small villages scattered across the vast landscapes of Europe. During the harsh winter months, peasants employed a combination of practicality, preparation, and innovation to ensure their survival. Firewood, the primary source of heat, was a crucial resource that required meticulous gathering and storage. Peasants dedicated months to chopping, collecting, and storing wood, recognizing its significance for their households and the community. While this collective effort ensured everyone had enough, the smoke from the fires posed a challenge. Medieval homes lacked chimneys, so the smoke filled the rooms, causing discomfort and potential health issues. To mitigate this, peasants often only lit fires when the cold was unbearable, relying on heavy clothing and blankets for warmth. Clothing during this period was simple and functional, designed to provide insulation. Peasants wore multiple layers of woolen garments, often homemade by the women of the household. Animal skins and furs were also used for added warmth. Footwear was made from leather or wood, and many filled their shoes with straw to enhance their insulating properties. Food was another vital aspect of survival. While the diet of a medieval peasant was not varied or rich, it was sufficient to endure the harsh winters. Preserved foods, grains, dried fruits, and salted meats were staples, stored in large quantities during the harvest season and rationed throughout the winter. Bread, porridge, and stews were common winter dishes, providing essential calories and warmth. Additionally, peasants relied on winter crops to supplement their food supply. These hardy vegetables, such as cabbages, turnips, and onions, could withstand the cold temperatures. Although not as nutritious or filling as summer crops, they were essential for supplementing the winter diet. The long winter nights and short days meant peasants spent much time indoors. To keep busy, they engaged in crafts like spinning wool, weaving cloth, and repairing tools. These activities not only passed the time, but also prepared them for the coming spring. The role of community and cooperation in survival cannot be overstated. In times of scarce resources and unforgiving weather, working together and supporting one another was crucial. Peasants shared resources, assisted in labor, and provided emotional support to their neighbors. This sense of community was not just a result of harsh conditions, but a vital survival strategy. Reflecting on the resilience of medieval peasants, it's important to remember that their survival strategies were born out of necessity and shaped by their environment. They exemplify human adaptability and resilience, offering insights that remain relevant today. As we explore medieval winters, let's consider these lessons, drawing parallels and contrasts with our own experiences. During the cold winter months, the survival of medieval peasants heavily depended on the fruits of their labor during the warmer months. While the ground was frozen and fields lay out, peasants subsisted on what they had managed to harvest. Their diet was generally restricted to grains like barley, oats, rye, and wheat. These grains were ground into flour and used to make bread, a staple in the medieval diet. Although the bread was often dense and coarse, it provided a crucial source of nutrition during the harsh winter months. Peasants relied heavily on preserved foods to endure the harsh winter months. Most households had a salting tub where meat, typically from pigs, was preserved using salt. The cured meat was then stored in a cool, dry place, providing a vital source of protein during the scarcity of fresh meat. Alongside this, they also pickled vegetables and fruits in vinegar or fermented them. For instance, apples were often transformed into cider, which could be stored for an extended period and served as a liquid source when water was scarce. Despite the barren fields, the forests remained abundant. Medieval peasants frequently ventured into the woods to forage for food. They gathered nuts, berries, and other edible plants, adding them to their winter food stores. Hunting was another common practice. although it was often regulated by the lord of the manor under the forest laws. These laws restricted the hunting of certain animals to the nobility, but peasants were permitted to hunt smaller game like rabbits and birds. Trapping and fishing also supplemented their winter diet. Surviving the winter was not solely dependent on food. Shelter was equally crucial. Peasant houses, generally constructed from wattle and daub, lacked adequate insulation, making it a constant struggle to stay warm during the cold winter months. The hearth served as the central hub of the medieval home, providing both heat and a place for cooking. Firewood was meticulously collected throughout the year and stored for the winter. In the evenings, peasants would gather around the fire, sharing stories and engaging in tasks such as mending clothes or tools. Warm clothing was essential, and wool was the most commonly used material. Women in the household would spin the wool into yarn, which was then woven into cloth, creating garments. Woolen clothes offered much-needed warmth during the coldest months and were often layered to provide additional insulation. However, the harsh winter months also brought with them the threat of disease. The scarcity of fresh food and limited sunlight led many peasants to suffer from malnutrition and vitamin deficiency-related diseases like scurvy. To address these issues, they relied on herbs for their medicinal properties. Garlic, believed to aid digestion and infections, and thyme, thought to help with respiratory problems, were common in peasants' medicine cabinets. Religion also played a crucial role in their survival. The medieval world was deeply religious, and the church provided spiritual solace during the harsh winter months. Christmas, in particular, was a time for celebration and respite from winter's hardships. It was a period of feasting and merriment, offering a brief respite from the otherwise bleak winter. Finally, the peasants' survival during winter depended on a strong sense of community. In these small, tight-knit communities, individuals depended heavily on each other for survival. The shared experience of enduring the winter strengthened these communities, fostering a sense of unity and camaraderie essential for their survival during the darkest months when the world was blanketed in snow and the cold seemed endless. The fruits of their labor, the warmth of their hearth, the strength of their community, and the hope of the coming spring sustained the medieval peasants. Even in the face of adversity, they found ways to survive, and their resilience stands as a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and overcome. This concludes the second section of our exploration into the survival strategies of medieval peasants during the coldest winter. In the next section, we will delve deeper into the specific roles that men, women, and children played during this challenging season. We will also examine the various tasks and chores that filled their days and the ways in which they prepared for the coming spring. As you drift off to sleep, reflect on the resilience and resourcefulness of these medieval peasants. Their lives serve as a testament to the enduring power of human survival. In the heart of the coldest winter, these peasants found themselves heavily reliant on the fruits of their summer labor. During these frosty months, the stores of grains, pulses, vegetables, and meat became indispensable. They had meticulously harvested these in the summer and autumn months, knowing that they would be their lifeline through the winter. Grain held particular significance as it was the primary ingredient for bread and porridge, staples of the peasant diet. Even in the harshest of times, when the cold seemed unbearable and the earth was frozen and unyielding, the peasants found solace in the warmth of a freshly baked loaf of bread from their hearth. Preserving food was an art that the peasants had mastered over time. They employed various methods to extend the shelf life of their provisions. Meats were salted or smoked to prevent spoilage, while grains were dried and stored in a cool, dry place to prevent rot. Root vegetables like turnips and parsnips were also stored in a similar manner, often in a root cellar dug into the ground to take advantage of the earth's natural insulation. Recognizing the importance of safeguarding their food stores from pests and spoilage, the peasants took great care in their preservation efforts. In addition to their stored food, they also relied on winter foraging to supplement their diet despite the challenging conditions. Certain wild plants and roots could still be found, and they hunted small game like rabbits and squirrels, which were abundant in the forests surrounding their villages. The peasants possessed profound knowledge of the natural world and understood how to make the most of its offerings, even during the depths of winter. For warmth and light, they relied on firewood. Chopping and gathering wood was a constant task throughout the year. but it became particularly crucial in the lead-up to winter. The medieval hearth, the heart of the home, was fueled by wood, providing warmth and serving as the center of cooking and family gatherings. Peasants' homes, simple yet functional, were typically constructed from wale and daub, a mud and straw mixture, with thatched roofs. Thick walls offered insulation against the cold, and small windows minimized heat loss. The floor was usually packed earth, covered with straw for extra insulation. A loft space in the roof served as a sleeping area, where body heat from animals kept below would rise and keep them warm. Clothing was crucial for survival during harsh winters. Peasants wore layers of wool and leather, both excellent insulators. Women spun wool into yarn and wove it into tunics, cloaks, and hoods. Leather was used for shoes and belts, and fur provided additional warmth. Survival in these harsh winters depended not only on resources, but also on community. Peasants shared the work of harvesting and preserving food, chopping and gathering wood, and tending to animals. They came together in times of need, sharing what they had and supporting each other. This sense of community was vital to their survival strategy. Despite the harsh medieval winter, peasants found ways to endure it. Through clever resource use, knowledge of the natural world, and a strong sense of community, they survived the coldest months of the year. Their resilience and resourcefulness are truly remarkable. As we drift off to sleep tonight, we can find comfort in knowing that even in the harshest times, humans have found ways to survive and thrive. We can draw inspiration from the medieval peasants and remember that, with resourcefulness, determination, and the support of our community, we can overcome any challenge. Good night and sweet dreams. As the bone-chilling cold seeped into the homes of the medieval peasants, a sense of dread and despair gripped their hearts. The winter was harsh, long, and relentless, making survival an ongoing struggle. However, the indomitable spirit of these hard-working individuals remained unbroken. They understood that the key to survival lay in their unity, resourcefulness, and perseverance. During these frigid winter months, firewood served as the primary source of warmth. The gathering of firewood was a communal endeavor, with each member of the community contributing to the task. Elderly individuals who were unable to engage in the labor-intensive chopping of wood took on the responsibility of collecting smaller branches and twigs from the ground. Despite their young age, the children eagerly participated, offering their assistance in any way they could. The collected firewood was then stored in communal barns, ensuring that everyone had access to this precious resource. However, firewood was not the sole source of warmth for the peasants. They also relied heavily on their livestock for heat. Animals were often kept in the lower levels of their homes, where their body heat contributed to the warmth of the dwelling. This dual-purpose arrangement not only protected the animals from the harsh winter conditions, but also provided the peasants with a much-needed source of warmth. The medieval peasants' diet also played a crucial role in their survival. During the winter months, their diet was predominantly composed of grains and legumes, providing the essential energy to endure the cold. A typical meal would consist of a thick, hearty stew made from dried peas or beans, onions, and any available vegetables. This meal was accompanied by dark, coarse bread made from rye or barley, which complemented their physical preparations. The peasants, seeking solace and strength in their faith, found solace in the church's central role in their community. During these challenging times, the church provided spiritual guidance and comfort, instilling in the peasants a belief that their survival rested in God's hands. This faith fueled their resilience, enabling them to endure the harsh conditions. Despite the adversity, the sense of community among the peasants remained unshaken. They relied on one another for support, sharing resources and working together to ensure their survival. The harsh winter months served as a testament to their unity, emphasizing the importance of mutual cooperation for their survival. As the winter wore on, the peasants' daily routines slowed down. The fields lay dormant, blanketed in snow, and the once bustling markets were quiet, with only the occasional trader braving the cold to sell their goods. The peasants spent most of their time indoors, huddled around the fire, mending tools, weaving cloth, and sharing stories to pass the time. Even amidst the hardship, the peasants found joy in simple pleasures. They gathered around the fire, singing songs, telling stories, and playing games. finding respite from the harsh reality of their situation. These moments of shared camaraderie and laughter provided a much-needed break. As the medieval peasants weathered the coldest winter, their resilience and resourcefulness were truly tested. Yet they emerged stronger, their sense of community reinforced, and their spirit unbroken. The harsh winter served as a stark reminder of their vulnerability, but it also highlighted their strength and resilience. Their survival was a testament to their tenacity and unwavering will to endure, regardless of the circumstances. Throughout the long, harsh winters of the medieval period, the resourcefulness of the ordinary peasant proved crucial for survival. The primary source of heat in their homes was a central hearth, where a fire would be kept burning throughout the day and night. This hearth, not just a source of warmth, served as the heart of the home, where meals were prepared, family gatherings were held, and stories were shared to pass the time. Throughout the year, firewood was collected, with even the youngest children, too small for fieldwork, entrusted with gathering kindling. However, wood wasn't the sole fuel source. In regions where trees were scarce, peat, a type of decayed vegetation, was also used. It burned slower and longer than wood, providing a consistent source of warmth during the coldest months. Peasant diets also played a crucial role in surviving the winter. Although fresh fruits and vegetables were scarce, they relied on preserved foods. Autumn was a time of preparation when surplus crops were pickled, dried, or stored in root cellars. Meat was preserved through smoking or salting and stored for the winter. The medieval peasant diet was not varied, mainly consisting of dark bread made from rye or barley, onions, garlic, and preserved meats. Despite the limited variety, it provided the necessary calories to sustain them through the cold. Winter naturally meant less physical activity and more rest. The lack of sunlight and harsh weather conditions made it difficult for peasants to work the fields. Instead, they turned to indoor tasks such as mending tools, weaving, and spinning. This was also a time for communal activities like storytelling and singing, which helped to keep spirits high and strengthen community bonds. Despite the hardships, winter also brought certain advantages. With the ground frozen solid, it became easier to transport heavy loads using sledges rather than wagons, which could get stuck in the mud during other seasons. This made it possible to bring in supplies from further afield, such as timber from the forests or stone for building. Another key aspect of survival was clothing. Peasants wore multiple layers to protect themselves from the cold. Undergarments were typically made of linen, while the outer layer was made of wool. Fur was also used, especially for cloaks and gloves. Shoes were often made of leather or wood and stuffed with straw for extra warmth. Community played a crucial role in medieval life. In times of scarcity or when a family's supplies ran out, the community came to their aid. Sharing and cooperation were essential for survival. This sense of community was most evident during the holiday season, when feasts were held and food, drink, and merriment were shared. Despite the harsh conditions, these celebrations provided a sense of hope and respite from the gloom of winter. The resilience and resourcefulness of the medieval peasant during the coldest winters are a testament to human adaptability. Their survival strategies, from careful resource management to the importance of community and cooperation, offer a glimpse into the harsh realities of medieval life. However, they also remind us of the human capacity for endurance and resilience. As we conclude this section, let us remember these humble individuals whose daily struggles and triumphs have shaped the course of history. Their survival skills, passed down through generations, are a testament to their strength and ingenuity. And as we drift closer to sleep, let their stories remind us of the warmth and comfort that we are fortunate enough to enjoy today. In the heart of the coldest winter, the medieval peasant's life was marked by an intense struggle for survival. The relentless snowfall blanketed the landscape in a stunning white, but beneath this serene facade, the peasants endured a battle against the elements. With limited resources and technology, they relied heavily on their resourcefulness and community spirit to navigate these harsh times. Their survival strategy centered around ensuring they had sufficient food and warmth, two fundamental needs that were inextricably linked. The majority of their diet consisted of grains, particularly barley and oats, which they harvested in the autumn and stored for the winter. These versatile grains could be used to make various foods like bread, porridge, and ale. Vegetables such as cabbages and turnips, harvested before the first frost, were stored in pits or cellars to preserve them for consumption throughout the winter. However, heating their homes and cooking their food required a constant supply of firewood. The peasants spent the warmer months collecting and storing firewood to ensure they had enough to last through the winter. This was a grueling task that often involved the entire family. Wood was also essential for constructing tools and buildings, so their need for it was constant and pressing. Livestock played a crucial role in the winter survival strategy of the medieval peasant. Animals like cattle, sheep, and pigs provided not only food but also other essential resources. Wool from sheep was spun into yarn and woven into warm clothing and blankets. The skins of animals were used to make sturdy shoes and coats, offering vital protection against the biting cold. In dire times, the peasants would slaughter their livestock for meat, a decision not taken lightly given the importance of these animals for survival. Despite the harsh conditions, the peasants did not endure the winter in isolation. The concept of community was strong, with villagers often working together to ensure everyone's survival. Sharing and bartering were common practices, with surplus goods being exchanged for items that were in short supply. For instance, a peasant with an abundance of grain might trade with a neighbor who had extra firewood. This sense of communal responsibility extended to offering help to those in need. It was not uncommon for wealthier villages to provide food and warmth to those less fortunate. The church held a significant role in the lives of medieval peasants, especially during the harsh winter months. It served as the heart of village life, offering spiritual guidance and practical assistance. Monasteries and abbeys often had ample food and firewood, which they generously distributed to those in need during difficult times. Monks skilled in medicine and healing also provided care to the sick and injured. However, winter was not solely a time of hardship. It was also a period of rest and recuperation for the peasants, a welcome respite from the grueling harvest season. With the fields lying dormant beneath the snow, there was time for leisure activities like storytelling, music, and games. These activities lifted the spirits of the villagers, offering a much-needed break from the harsh realities of winter. Despite the brutal cold, the medieval peasants demonstrated remarkable resilience and resourcefulness in their survival. Through careful planning and cooperation, they managed not only to endure the hardships, but also to find moments of joy and celebration amidst the adversity. Their story serves as a poignant reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the power of community in overcoming challenges. As night fell, the peasants would retreat to the warmth of their homes, huddling around the fire as they shared stories and meals. The soft glow of the fire flickered against the walls, casting long shadows that danced in rhythm with the tales being told outside. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in silence. But within their homes, the peasants found warmth, comfort, and companionship, a beacon of hope amidst the winter's chill. As we delve deeper into the lives of medieval peasants during the coldest winter, we discover a flurry of activities that are essential for their survival and sustenance. In the upcoming 7th part of our narrative, we will explore how these hardy individuals managed to keep themselves warm during the harsh winter months. Firewood, the primary source of heat for medieval peasants, was not merely a chore but a family affair. As summer waned and autumn's chill set in, peasants ventured into the woods to gather firewood. They chopped down trees, collected fallen branches, twigs, and leaves, despite the dangers of wild animals, bandits, and injury. The need for warmth, however, outweighed these risks. Once collected, the firewood was carefully stacked and stored, often covered with thatch or stored in a woodshed to keep it dry. This precious commodity was used sparingly throughout winter, primarily for cooking and heating. The hearth, the heart of the home, provided warmth and comfort. Where meals were cooked, stories were shared, and family bonds were strengthened. Clothing also played a crucial role in keeping the peasants warm. They wore multiple layers, with woolen outer layers known for their excellent insulating properties and linen garments underneath, which absorbed sweat and prevented chills. Fur-lined boots and gloves protected their extremities from frostbite. Their homes, too, were designed with the cold in mind. Small houses with thick walls made from clay, straw, and animal dung provided excellent insulation, and small windows minimized heat loss. At night, families huddled together for warmth, often sharing the same bed. Food during winter was scarce. The peasants, relying on their stored provisions from the bountiful summer months, indulged in a diet of preserved foods like pickled vegetables and smoked meat. Despite the simplicity, their meals were filling, providing the energy they needed to endure the long, cold days. The church played a crucial role in their survival during winter. Often the warmest building in the village, it served as a gathering place for mass and a haven of comfort and companionship during the bleak months. The church also distributed alms to the poor, offering much-needed food and clothing. Despite the harsh conditions, the peasants found joy and contentment in simple pleasures like a warm fire, hearty meals, and lively stories. They drew strength from their community, supporting each other in times of need, and found solace in their faith, finding hope in the promise of a better tomorrow. As the winter months dragged on, the peasants eagerly anticipated the arrival of spring, looking forward to warmer days, budding trees, and the promise of a bountiful harvest. However, until then, they had to endure the coldest winter. In the next part of our narrative, we'll explore how these resilient individuals prepared for spring's arrival and the challenges that awaited them. We'll delve into their agricultural practices, religious beliefs, and social customs as they navigated this challenging period in history. So, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's continue our journey into the lives of medieval peasants during the coldest winter. As we delve deeper into this harsh winter, it's crucial to remember the vital role of the community in a medieval peasant's survival. Each individual in the village had a specific role to play, and everyone understood that their survival depended on their collective efforts. During the harsh winter months, when resources were scarce and the cold was relentless, the sense of communal interdependence was particularly crucial. Peasants, for the most part, lived in small, tightly knit communities where everyone knew each other. These communities functioned like extended families, with each member playing a vital role in their survival. The concept of every man for himself was foreign to them. Instead, they embraced shared responsibility and mutual support. This sense of community was not just an ideal, it was a practical necessity. During the winter, the community would gather in the village hall, a large wooden and thatched structure. Here they shared stories, played games, and comforted one another through the darkest days. The village elder, often the most experienced and wise member, would share tales of past winters, offering advice on how to endure the current one. These gatherings also served as a means of preserving the community's history and passing on valuable knowledge to the younger generations. In addition to these communal gatherings, it was common for villages to share their food and other resources. If a family's winter store was running low, their neighbors would generously offer them some of their own supplies. This was not seen as charity, it was a necessary act of survival. The expectation was that the favor would be returned in kind when the situation was reversed. The role of the manor lord was also critical during this time. They were responsible for maintaining peace and ensuring the survival of the community. The lord had the authority to ration food and other resources and make decisions about work schedules and other matters that affected the community's ability to endure the winter. Lords were expected to lead by example, often sharing their own resources with the community and working alongside the peasants in the fields or other tasks. Religion played a crucial role in the survival of the community during the harsh winter months. The local church served as a haven of refuge and support, offering spiritual guidance and practical assistance. The priest or bishop would distribute alms to the impoverished, provide food and shelter to those in need, and celebrate church holidays like Christmas and Epiphany, which offered a much-needed respite from the unforgiving realities of winter. These festivities provided a reminder of the hope and joy that persisted even in the most challenging times. Reflecting on the hardships faced by medieval peasants during the coldest winter, it's essential to acknowledge their remarkable strength and resilience. Their survival wasn't solely a matter of luck or circumstance. It was a testament to their resourcefulness, determination, and unwavering sense of community. Despite the brutal conditions and the relentless winters, they persevered, buoyed by the knowledge that they were not alone but part of a community united in their shared struggle. As we delve deeper into this fascinating period of history, let's draw inspiration from the lessons imparted by these medieval peasants. The importance of community, the power of shared responsibility, and the strength found in facing adversity together are timeless principles that continue to resonate with us. As we drift off to sleep, let these lessons guide us, inspiring us to confront our own challenges with the same resilience and determination. Our exploration of the medieval winters that swept across Europe continues in the 9th section of our 4th block, where we will delve into the remarkable survival strategies employed by the peasants during the coldest winter. To truly appreciate the resilience and ingenuity of these medieval peasants, it's crucial to first comprehend the harsh conditions they endured. In the heart of winter, the countryside would be blanketed in heavy snow, transforming the fields into unworkable expanses and rendering the roads nearly impassable. As the days grew shorter and the nights longer, the temperature plummeted dramatically, often plunging below freezing. Frostbite and hypothermia became constant threats, and the scarcity of food and fuel made survival even more challenging. Despite these daunting circumstances, the peasants found ways to endure. They huddled together in their small huts, sharing body heat and scarce resources. These rudimentary homes, often made of wattle and daub with thatched roofs, had thick walls for insulation and straw-covered floors to add warmth. A central hearth provided heat and light, around which the family would gather. Bundled in layers of woolen clothing and heavy furs, they sought refuge from the biting cold. During the coldest winter months, the peasants' diet relied heavily on preserved foods. They consumed dried meats, salted fish, cheeses, and pickled vegetables. Thick, hearty stews made from these preserved items were a staple, providing essential nutrients and warmth. Grains such as barley and oats, stored from the autumn harvest, were also crucial. Baked into bread or boiled into porridge, these grains sustained them throughout the harsh winter months. In addition to their ingenuity in surviving indoors, the peasants had to venture out into the cold for various tasks. Gathering firewood from the surrounding forests was a labor-intensive and often dangerous task, especially in the deep snow and freezing temperatures. Hunting game and fishing through the ice required great skill and patience. They also tended to their livestock, ensuring the animals were fed and sheltered from the harsh weather. Community played a vital role in survival during these harsh winters. Villages came together, sharing resources and supporting one another. They helped each other gather firewood, shared preserved food, and cared for the sick and elderly. This community spirit, born out of necessity, helped the villagers endure the harshest of winters. Religion played a significant role in helping peasants cope with the harsh winter. The church offered solace and hope during these challenging times. Feast days like Christmas and Epiphany provided much-needed respite from the winter's rigors. These celebrations involved feasting, dancing, and merriment, lifting the villagers' spirits and strengthening their sense of community. Despite the difficult conditions, peasants found joy and beauty in the winter season. They admired the stark beauty of the snow-covered landscape, the quiet stillness of the forests, and the crisp, cold air. They took pleasure in simple activities like sledding and ice skating, which offered a welcome distraction from their arduous daily lives. In conclusion, the survival of medieval peasants during the coldest winters was a testament to their resilience, resourcefulness, and community spirit. Through a combination of practical skills, communal support, and unwavering faith, they not only endured but thrived, creating a rich and vibrant culture that continues to captivate us today. As you drift off to sleep, let these stories of resilience and survival inspire you, reminding you of the strength and adaptability inherent in the human spirit.